President-elect Donald Trump attending a SpaceX Starship launch as his return to the White House could propel the U.S. space industry to new heights.
Cool moment, not something you see every day. Nope. Chris Quilty is the founder of Quilty Space, and he joins me now. Chris, good morning to you. So now that Elon Musk and Donald Trump have teamed up, what does the future of space exploration look like under this incoming administration?
Well, I guess we'll find out, because the first Trump administration, I think it's hard to argue, was the most consequential presidency for the space industry since probably John F. Kennedy, the establishment of the Space Force, the Artemis Accords, the reestablishment of the National Space Council, multiple space directives. Really move things forward. And what's interesting is prior to his election, Donald Trump didn't really talk about space, and we haven't heard a lot about his space plans going into his second administration, which is why I say, I guess we'll find out.
Space equals military in many respects. You well know that. So when President Trump says we will lead the world in space exploration, what do you take that to mean specifically when it comes to the military?
Well, the military and space are interesting because space by treaty cannot be militarized. And yet we do have China being very active on the moon, staking out some of the very important locations on the moon where natural resources exist. And in the space environment where we operate our communications and intelligence satellites, we have both Chinese and Russian satellites that potentially threaten the existence and the operation of our systems, which is part of the reason why we have the Space Force building its own constellation of satellites to try to create a more resilient architecture. I think we're going to see an increase in the Space Force budget and in space activities, and probably a move towards the moon, which was a first-term Trump goal to put American boots on the moon in his second term. He's got a second chance with a 4-year gap to make up the difference.
Yeah, so when do you think we get a person back on the moon and maybe Mars? And why is it important to do those things?
Well, the moon, again, there's geopolitical reasons to go back there. There's also a ton of natural resources, which if you believe the fact that the two richest men in the world, or two of the richest men, and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, are spending not merely investing in space, but they are spending their personal wealth to make either mankind an interplanetary species, is sort of Trump's goal, or for Jeff Bezos to have millions of people living and working in space. You're going to need those resources from the moon and other planetary bodies. Likewise, when you look at Mars, that's a little bit more distant, to look at the economic potential there. There's certainly people that see it. But at this point, it's really more of a planting boots on the moon, proving it can be done, and driving the national prestige that comes from that type of activity.
Chris, I think a lot of this is really overwhelming to the average everyday American. Like, I hear space and I think my head explodes to a certain extent because it's so out there, right? So if Musk and Trump are able to accomplish their space goals, what does that mean for the average everyday American who's watching this right now, cup of coffee in hand, trying to figure out, why does this matter to me?
Well, it does matter. I mean, people see it in their life today. They probably don't notice. GPS is all, everything we drive and navigate is derived from space. A lot of our communication systems and other critical infrastructure. But more close to home, it's Starlink, right? That consumers see that service, they enjoy it, they find benefit from it. But I think actually in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see a wholesale change in the view of how space impacts the economy and our daily life. And that's, as I speak today, we have 4 companies building private space stations, dozens of missions going to the moon. There are companies manufacturing pharmaceuticals, fiber optic cables, and other products that are commercial products they can sell here on Earth. Very early stages in that. But at the end of the day, there are a ton of things that can be done in space to improve life here on Earth. If you believe Jeff Bezos, all heavy manufacturing would move off the face of the Earth and be done in space, and you just have light manufacturing here on the ground.
Yeah, it's interesting because Elon Musk has been tasked with cutting government spending, but we'll see what he does with NASA and the Space Force. As you say, those budgets could increase. Something to watch. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Chris.
Have a great day.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.